Another acquisition by Atari yesterday, and while this one might not be so straightforward as to what the motivations are, I think we can probably read between the lines and see the reasoning for this. Hey there, welcome back to Gen X Grown Up. I'm John. I am a Gen X Grown Up, and if you visit the channel with any regularity, you know that I love to talk about Atari. Atari was a huge part of my youth growing up, and I love that it is getting a resurgence now here in the 21st century, and we're seeing, under the guidance of Wade Rosen, doing some largely positive moves in terms of pushing Atari back where it needs to be. The news, which has been reported all over the place, Destructoid and all over the place, but I got it straight from Atari's blog where they announced that acquisition. And it says, Atari announced today the acquisition of multiple titles from Ronimo Games, including Awesomenauts and Swords and Soldiers. The purchase includes the games, trademarks, and the underlying property. Now, this was just released yesterday. Now, if you're like me and you spend all your time looking at stuff that happened before 1989, then you might not know who or what a Ronimo Games is. I didn't, so I had to do a little bit of research. Ronimo is a Dutch video game developer. They were founded in 2007, largely students from an arts school. So a bunch of, I'm guessing, young men and women who were studying game design founded this company. Initially, they were called something else, like Banana Games, I forget. Anyway, but they founded this, what has been largely successful game. They are known for Swords and Soldiers from 2010, Awesomenauts from 2012, both of which we just mentioned from that press release, and most recently in 2021, Blightbound. Now, none of these games are games that I'm personally familiar with, but I watched some footage and looked at them, and they're very cartoon stylized. They remind me of a quality indie game developer sort of game. I think you can draw a parallel. The first thing I thought when I saw them was the art style of Castle Crashers. That was a game that I first played on the 360 many, many years ago. It's very kind of cartoony, as I said. It also reminds me, when I look at them, it doesn't surprise me that it looks a bit like the recently released Days of Doom, which was, the turn-based combat sort of game set in a zombie apocalypse thing. So I guess it doesn't surprise me necessarily that Atari would want these properties, but there's a little more to it in that. So why now they did not buy Ronimo Games. I don't know that it was for sale necessarily, but it was currently under a bankruptcy filing. I don't know the process of that, but back on August 30th, they reportedly filed for bankruptcy, and in fact, an employee from Ronimo Games confirmed they did file for bankruptcy on their Discord server just a week or so after that initial rumor. So it sounds like, from what I'm reading, that Ronimo Games was in a tough spot. They were probably looking to liquidate to get some funds and whatever, so it doesn't sound like Atari purchased that company or those developers, not like Night Dive, which was a perfectly healthy and operating company. And we know why you purchase Night Dive, because they had that emulation technology to make old games refresh and new again and run on current platforms. All makes sense. There's a strategic avenue in there. We understand why you would buy Stern Games, why you'd buy M Network Games. All that makes sense. These games from Ronimo make a little less sense to me, but then my buddy over at Atari, David Lowy, he put a comment over on, or it was shared over on Atari Age, that he kind of elaborated on why Wade Rosen, the current CEO, wanted these games. And he says, and I'll quote here, both games show off Ronimo's sense of humor, their ability to create compelling characters and stories, and their game design. So comparable to what we've seen. They were received very positively when they were released, and they continue to support an active player base and community of fans. So we think they are a good addition to Atari's portfolio, and we will explore ways to continue to support and commercialize the existing games and the underlying IP. So from that, I think we can deduce a few things. So Wade Rosen liked the art style, the personality, the characters in the game, and the reception the game has gotten. This is clearly not part of their retro arm of Atari, where they're, reinvigorating things. Like, we know what you did with Berserk. Here's Berserk Recharged coming out, right? It seems to me, if I had to guess, I would assume that this is really their new game arm of Atari. That we saw the reimagining of Haunted House just came out. Days of Doom, which I mentioned, games that aren't necessarily based on retro IPs, but have that whimsical, cartoonish kind of fun Atari style, if you will. So I would expect. They say that they want to continue to support the existing user base. So that sounds like, hey, we're not just going to pull the plug on servers. Okay, that's great. Because these are like big multiplayer games too, big arena games, some of them. And there are sequels too to Swords and Soldiers and stuff. But I expect that the goal is to release new games based on these because it's an established, right? It's like, if we can make a sequel to a successful movie, that's less risky than making a brand new movie. That's why there's so many sequels and remakes. So if Atari can acquire these games that have an established fan base and make sequels to them, it's not an unknown commodity. Not only is it a game but it's a company now that Atari. So, and I would not be surprised if they use a couple of these titles to help prop up the VCS, which has not seen a lot of exclusive titles. I talked when I reviewed the VCS, it just doesn't have the killer app. It doesn't have the thing I can't do anywhere else. And maybe they might take some of these, sequels to successful popular games, maybe take these IPs and put them on the VCS where people already know what they are and they know they want to play them. That might drive more people to that platform. So those are just my assumptions and assertions. This is all based on just a day after what we've seen and what we have seen recently in history. I like watching what Atari is doing as they're expanding on their portfolio and adding these things. I should note that we don't know if these are the only two games they grabbed. We just know it includes these two. It could be others. Ronimo didn't have a huge library of games. There's only a few more they could have grabbed. So remains to be seen. So we'll keep an eye out on what's happening with it. You and I together will see as Atari continues this journey of growing its whatever it's doing into a larger company with reestablishing itself as kind of a cornerstone of gaming where it began. So cool. Hey, I will throw a couple of links over my shoulder to some other recent news items, some of those acquisitions. I certainly hope you found something interesting or enjoyable in this quick video, and I can't wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.